Okay, I tried to go live tonight and that apparently did not work well. I'm trying to use my Mac and I don't know if that's gonna work well either, so I think I'm probably gonna switch back to my phone in a second. Um, Basically, I have been watching this show Forensic Files because I watched everything else out there, and Criminal Minds just ended, and Supernatural, we're waiting like for the last two episodes. We have to wait like another month. The Magicians is coming out with new episodes. I've binge watched everything. I like a lot of stuff that's semi mindless, so I can like play video games. I got my Switch right here while I'm watching, and then circle back. This time, not only in my live, but I took a couple of notes. So anyway, I watched The Good Place on recommendation from a friend and really liked it, but I took a break from Forensic Files, so I went back today because I finally finished The Good Place. And the first two episodes already got me thinking because they were women in their 30s, and I always have this "it won't happen to me" type of attitude. It's called, there's actual bias for it. The term's kind of it's called the optimism bias, which for me to have that's pretty awesome. But I've done crazy stuff like go to Mexico by myself a couple years ago for my birthday, and I had long straight blonde hair, tan, similar in size to Natalie Holloway. And so my friend made me promise every night to call her because she's working. I'm like, I'm gonna be fine. Like, I can't make a decision about what I want to eat or what I'm gonna do tomorrow. But jumping off a cliff, going to another country all by myself, nothing's gonna happen. So it's just kind of stuff you think about. Then the third episode, which 3 is my lucky number, was DaCosta. It piqued my interest immediately because they mentioned Fort Lauderdale, and this one's doing like this is the first they call it, they actually have a different name. It's not like seasons, it's collections. This is the first collection, so these are the 90s right now. So I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, born in Rhode Island, for most of you that actually know me know that. So anyway, that piqued my interest. And then when I started to watch, like halfway watch, I had to keep rewinding. So what I do when I actually want to pay attention to just that, I have to rewind. So eventually I had to completely just keep rewinding and stop and only pay attention to the episode. And it was kind of crazy because this young woman was her name was DaCosta. She had just turned 21. Like, her whole life was ahead of her. Her birthday was the 1st and she was killed like 4 days later, I want to say. But my cousin, her birthday, she had turned 16 around the same time. So I remember, like, it was a big deal, and I had just had my birthday on the 7th, which was the day that her body was found. And I went to school in Oakland Park, and it was my freshman year, so it was feeling awkward and blah blah blah. And I had just turned like 14. Yeah, 14. So it was an impressionable time in my life, and usually I watched the news back then because I wanted to improve the world and make it better, and I wasn't politically apathetic back then as I am now. I was, I'm still a really big people pleaser, but much more so then. And so it got me thinking, though, about why we connect more to certain events than others. Some people connect with the homeless, and some people connect with cancer because of their family and because of that. And there's so many reasons to connect and so many reasons to disconnect. And it's like, well, I don't know them, I don't care. Like, as far as famous people dying, I think the only person famous I've actually cared about was Robin Williams. It's just, it's not personal. Like, it's sad that they died, but I don't know them. I don't know anything about them, and people die every single day, and if you mourn the loss of every death, you won't function. And so it got me thinking that, you know, a lot of the reason we all love documentaries is because it's kind of really hard to understand or empathize and put ourselves in someone else's mindsets or position, because, you know, we all view the world differently. No two people view it identically, no matter how alike you are. And then people are judgmental by nature. Like, some are worse than others, yes, but you know, when you look at somebody, you have fleeting judgmental thoughts that come into your head. Your ability to filter them, kind of impulse control with it, is what makes you, I guess, more judgmental, well, in the eyes of others. With yourself, if you're catching yourself when you're thinking those judgmental thoughts and being like, okay, no, like, put yourself kind of in their position, and you're like, no, you know, everyone should be happy, or whatever it is that counters the judgmental thought that first went into your head. That's kind of, you know, good actions to helping counter it, I guess is the best point. So anyway, watching this, Danya normally went to church with her little sister, who happened to have a lot of homework, so she didn't go that night. And it was later found out some guy, what was his name? It was a maintenance guy that killed her. And apparently he had a pretty long track record of being arrested but not convicted. His name was Lucas Boyd. It doesn't really matter his name, because he doesn't deserve recognition for taking anyone's life, let alone multiple people's. Anyway, he was in a church van, and he was the maintenance guy, and I guess because he'd never been convicted, you know, the pastor of the church ran nursery or whatever it was had let him, you know, given him the benefit of the doubt, because back then, like, everybody you wanted to see the best. You were blindly dumb about it, like, about everything. You trusted people. I mean, if I saw, you know, a church bus, of course I'm gonna think they're honestly willing to help me and accept theirs. And, you know, Danya did that. The only thing she did wrong was trust somebody that she should have been able to trust, and the fact that she couldn't is sad. And it's horrifying. I feel for her family. Like, that should have been, you know, the starting point of her life. You just turned 21, like, your whole world is ahead of you, and it's taken from you by someone who's supposed to be a good Christian person helping you, and they hurt you. And it's unfortunate, because situations like that are what turn people away from church sometimes, which, I mean, it shouldn't, but it does. I mean, I still believe in God, but I have my own reasons that I don't anymore. I don't attend Mass. It was, my mom converted to Baptist, and it was a pastor that was the reason that I changed my mind. But anyway, that's a whole nother, not gonna get into. Let me see what else. Oh yeah. Okay. So the only other thing that I thought was kind of cool and important, and it kind of blows my mind how two completely polar opposite impressionable experiences can happen at the same time. But I mean, when you think about it, it happens all the time. Like, for me, my older cousin had just turned 16. You know, I had just turned 14. You know, I was a freshman in high school. It was Christmas time. Exams were coming. My best friend had just brought me a balloon to my gym class. And then I was in band for a semester. And then I had too much else going on, so I quit. And I kind of sucked. Yeah. But anyway, so they had a tradition where they'd give you, like, birthday hits, and the only two people that wanted to were guys, but they wouldn't do it. So my friend Kelly and like my second period did. So when we got to like third period, and I was so excited after lunch because they announced mine and Lacey's birthday. It was like the cool, pretty, like upperclassman, and I looked up to her, and you know, she is a couple years older than me, but you know, she looked kind of like Nev Campbell, and she was super sweet and like laid back, and I just admired her. And so I would just remember them announcing both of our birthdays together, and then none of us getting birthday hits, and it was like awesome. And I thought that it was the best birthday ever at that time. I don't really know if I quantify it, but you know, that's the feeling that she probably had earlier that week, because her 21st birthday is, you know, the best thing ever. And then it's taken so swiftly, and you know, she should have went on to have more birthdays and more this and that. And let me see if I have anything else, because I need a better but yeah, that day, like that, all of that was happening for me. My birthday, that was the day our body was found. And you know, I was in high school in Oakland Park at that time. I lived in Fort Lauderdale. Oakland Park is like this subdivision of Fort Lauderdale. There's so many subdivisions, but there's Fort Lauderdale proper, then it's Oakland Park, then it goes back to Fort Lauderdale, or Oakland Park, Fort Lauderdale, goes back to Oakland Park again, on like different sides of where we lived. I lived about a mile from the school. Back then, I mean, I was careless. I didn't think a care in the world. We walked home from cheer practice. I lived a tiny bit closer than some of my friends, or further than some of my friends, tiny bit closer than others. There was high schools everywhere, so we all lived pretty close. And, you know, we wouldn't care. And then when our friends' dads or someone would come by and just be like, hey, is everyone need a ride? We'd jump in the back of the truck, and we wouldn't think or care. And so, you know, it's crazy to think back then, all those times that we took all of those risks, and she should have been able to take that risk. And it's just insane to me that, you know, nowadays you wouldn't think to do any of that. And, back then there was still stuff like that going on. And her little sister put that it was on the news, and I guess with all the birthday excitement I didn't notice it. Plus it was around finals time, which is probably why her sister wasn't there. She's studying for her finals. You know, I had a December birthday, so it was always finals time. But I just think it's crazy to me that someone took advantage of an establishment that should be sanctioned and trusted, and took away an amazing spirit that had her whole life ahead, just because they're not a good person. And no one's completely good or completely bad, but when you're that bad to, like, crazy. This world is crazy, and I guess the biggest point of this is just to be a little bit more cautious. I know you like to think nothing will happen to you. I joke now that I'm not in my 20s anymore. Like, I'm not a teenager. Nothing will happen to me. Like, I'm not, you know, some young, hot, tall, blonde chick or whatever. And you really do have to be more cognizant of your surroundings, especially nowadays, because back then, like, Dawn had no reason to be afraid. She should have felt safe. Even if she was being aware, she was in the situation, and she still wasn't okay. So you really do have to start. I don't want you to be like paranoid people locked in your house, or pod person, but try to be more aware of your surroundings, and, you know, not be so reckless, maybe, I guess is the best way. Biggest point I wanted to drive home about it, and it's really crazy how every single day, so many different experiences happen. But definitely be more careful, guys. And I hope you have a wonderful evening and are enjoying your weekends.